Good afternoon, folks. We're just going to wait another minute or two as people start to join in, and then we'll get started. All right. Well, we're right about at the top of the hour, so I think we can get started. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Eric Hila with ESIG. Welcome everyone to this ESIG webinar. For those of you not familiar with ESIG, we are a membership-based nonprofit organization providing objective information, resources, and networking opportunities in support of clean energy and energy systems integration. We do this through workshops, tutorials, webinars, blogs, working groups, and task force activities. Also producing technical resource materials such as reports and fact sheets. So for those of you who are members, thank you for your support. It makes possible these webinars and all the work that we do. Our workshops and monthly webinars are open to everyone, so feel free to register anytime on the ESIG website at www.esig.energy or find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. All right, so just a few logistical matters before we get started. And hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Otherwise, I'll see something come up on the chat, but I'll just keep going with the logistical info as we get started. So all participant lines will be muted for the duration of the webinar to avoid any distractions. For our Q&A, as we normally do, we use the Slido platform. So we ask that you put your questions through Slido on slido.com. When you go to slido.com, please enter ESIG30 as the event code, and we'll remind folks of that through the chat periodically, just so you have it. So you're not actually able to ask questions through the WebEx. You'll have to go through the slido.com. You'll see these, kudos or thumbs up buttons next to the questions. You can cast your vote. That'll help us prioritize the questions when we have the time allocated for Q&A. So hopefully about 10-15 minutes for Q&A at the end, and then we'll wrap it up. And we'll send out an email with a link with the video file that's been posted, and also what we do is provide some short responses to all the questions, even those that we weren't able to get to during the hour time slot. So I think that's it for logistical matters. So on today's topic, we're hearing more and more about grid enhancing technologies, or GETs, and how they can be used to reduce transmission congestion across the network, support various reliability applications, ultimately save money for consumers by allowing more cost-effective energy to be delivered to load, while also, possibly serving as a bridge to any needed transmission expansion. So several initiatives on GETs are part of different regions, some of which we'll hear about today during the presentations. We know that the FERC has included GETs and alternative transmission technologies in several recent orders as options. And we have also seen GETs policies and statements from various states and the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissions. Globally, countries around the world are utilizing these technologies to help solve problems as well. I should also mention that ESIG has been facilitating a users group on GETs over the past year and a half, and encourage any utilities or system operators that are potential users of GETs that are interested in learning more about applications of GETs from your peers and to share information that you've gained yourself, to reach out to James Aculo at ESIG or myself for more information on that group. Today's webcast will focus on one of these technologies, transmission topology optimization. This software technology determines network configurations that can allow for more flow across the network and or reroute flow for more cost-effective energy to be delivered to loads. We will hear about the technology itself and then a specific application where it is being used by Alliant Energy within the ITC and MISO transmission systems. So we have a fantastic lineup of speakers to talk through these applications. First, Pablo Ruiz, CEO and founder of NewGrid, the company that developed the topology optimization software power router, which we'll talk about today. Followed by Elteriefi, Manager of Operational Planning at ITC. And finally, Myhre, Senior Manager of Business Planning and Regulatory Strategy at Alliant Energy. So just a short reminder again to use Slido, slido.com with the event code of ESIG30 to ask all of your questions. Okay, yeah, and that's about it for me. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to now turn it over to our first speaker, Pablo. These slides are yours.
Thank you, Eric, for the introduction, and greetings, everyone. We appreciate the invitation by ESIG to discuss congestion mitigation with transmission topology optimization and share experience and results at ITC and Alliant Energy. The plan for the webinar is for me to start. I'll provide an introduction and high-level background on congestion management and topology optimization, and we'll discuss a path for incremental implementation of the technology with utility processes, including the reconfiguration request processes, for example, the one in place at the Mid-Continent ISO. Then we will continue discussing the congestion management processes and reconfiguration experience at ITC, and Mitch will wrap it up by providing the experience and results at Alliant on energy topology optimization and concluding remarks and some recommendations. The traditional approach to congestion management treats the transmission grid as fixed, or in other words, as non-controllable. If we make an analogy with a highway system, this will be equivalent to increasing the tolls to discourage people from driving. If you think about the congestion management approach that way, it's easy to see that the impacts, both in terms of costs as well as reliability, could be very significant. And some figures are shared in this slide. Today, we'll be focusing on the Mid-Continent ISO markets and footprint. You can see in the map on the left-hand side the jurisdiction of MISO markets in the Midwest and southern regions of the U.S. Specifically in MISO, the 2024 congestion costs added up to $1.73 billion. And I would like to emphasize that this is not unusual. So around the globe, there are many markets having similar levels of congestion costs and in general congestion challenges. So MISO is certainly not an outlier from that point of view. So keeping the context on congestion management in mind, what topology optimization does is it enables flexible grid operation, or in other words, to make the grid itself part of the tool set to better manage congestion. As Eric mentioned, the topology optimization software quickly finds and evaluates reconfiguration options to reroute flow around congestion. It's like going back to the highway system, it's like a Google Maps for the transmission grid. These reconfiguration options are implemented by opening or closing existing circuit breakers and relying on existing infrastructure for communications and controls. The reconfigurations themselves are not the innovation. They have been used for many decades, and utilities do already reconfigure the system based on staff experience, usually on an ad hoc basis. The innovation is in terms of the decision support to operators and engineers to quickly, in a matter of seconds to minutes, identify the options so that they can make more informed decisions in the whatever the decision-making process they're working on is. Reliability is paramount, as everything in every case in the utility industry. And so the reconfigurations, when they are identified, they are evaluated under all specified contingencies, and to make sure that no issues are introduced, and if anything, they are relieved, and to avoid radializing any load unless that is explicitly allowed by the operator or the engineer for their purposes. There are different reconfiguration types, and now we're going into the specifics. They could be developed for use in preventive or corrective mode. So those are two quite distinct, and they may consist on one or multiple actions, such as opening or closing branches, like transformers, transmission lines, bus tie breakers, or reconfiguring substations to split a bus or merge the bus, or just pre-position the substation such that the critical contingency impacts on the system are more benign than otherwise, while keeping the pre-contingency connectivity as if it was a system intact type of situation. And Abu will say a few more words about each one of these from the point of view of a transmission operator. The technology can support pretty much any business process that deals with transmission limitations. So it's agnostic on timescales. In this slide, we are listing a number of these processes for which transmission limitations are important. In order of timescales, so from bottom to top, starting with long-term planning, and then operations planning in the months, weeks, and days ahead, all the way to real-time control room operations. So this is one view of the different applications. In the next slide, we'll effectively rearrange those applications, listing them by simplicity of integrating, or the need to integrate the technology itself with different utility systems. So going from top to bottom, we start with the simplest applications and go to the bottom with higher benefits and more integration required. So in terms of the one application that we'll discuss today that requires no technology integration is a reconfiguration request process. So in those systems, such as those that have novel markets, where the market participants are directly affected by congestion, they will have an incentive to have it mitigated for a regional benefit and for their own benefit. So in those systems, the implementation is to enable them to suggest beneficial reconfigurations, and we'll go into more details in the next slide. Now, speaking about use of the technology strictly in the utility context, there are applications in operations planning and planning. Those require either no system integration or integration with other systems, or minimal. And the technology works as an offline advisory tool for applications such as developing operating guides or mitigation plans for congestion or for potential overloads, to support outage scheduling and coordination, making sure that the impacts of those transmission or generation outages can be mitigated, or even to enable the outages when otherwise those could be overly impactful and result in unacceptable performance. In the longer term, technology can help optimize the transmission expansion, inform the design of substations, help increase the benefit to cost ratio of new projects, and so on and so forth, as listed on the previous slide. Now, moving on to more control room use in real-time operations. That, of course, requires an integration of some form with the energy management system to be able to provide operators with up-to-date information on beneficial reconfigurations to deal with the ever-changing real-time system conditions. That application can be extremely useful, especially in an extreme event situation where congestion may be limiting the delivery of available generation under very tight system conditions otherwise. And the implementation with the highest benefits is the use of topology optimization together with dispatch and commitment optimization and market clearing to continuously optimize the topology as the system conditions evolve and embed those decisions in the pricing signals sent to the market. That requires, in addition to the integration to the EMS, an integration to the market management systems. So this is an overview from a systems integration point of view with other systems. In this presentation, we'll focus on the top two applications. Now going into the first one, the Mid-Continent ISO implemented a formal process whereby market participants that identified beneficial system reconfigurations from a regional point of view that perform well under every reasonable scenario that is expected for a given event or for a given period, to provide an avenue for market participants to communicate those opportunities to MISO, together with the information on analysis and backing up the reconfiguration request. MISO would then evaluate together with the affected transmission owners, transmission operators, both for a number of points of view, including implementability, feasibility, impacts on reliability, impacts on markets. And if those assessments are positive, then the reconfigurations are approved and then used in operations. So at NewGrid, we have been working with Alliant Energy and a number of other MISO members, monitoring congestion and leveraging this process to mitigate congestion regionally, working with ITC and other transmission operators, with MISO staff as part of the process. And Abu and Mitch will share some of the results and the experience in it. So with this, I'll turn it over to Abu to share the experience at ITC.
Thank you, Pablo. Pablo mentioned I'll go over our process here internally at ITC and how we interact with our customers and MISO and other involved party. But first, give you a quick introduction about ITC. ITC is the largest independent electric transmission company in the U.S. with about 16,000 circuit miles of transmission, serving over 26 gigawatts of load and connecting over 40 gigawatts of generation. You'll notice part of that, significant part of that is actually renewable generation, including wind. Wind is the leading source here for renewable for us at this point. And we've seen a lot of growth, especially in our Midwest territory. And that's where Alliant Energy is our largest customer there. All right. Because of that, we're very interested in ways to manage congestion, help our customers, and improve reliability. Similar to the MISO process that Pablo introduced earlier, we go through a number of steps here, starting with identifying congestion issues. The way we go about it. We have an internal program here that I will go over here in a little bit, very high level, but a very significant source for us identifying is customer requests and like working with Alliant and NewGrid when they identify issues and they bring that to our attention, and in addition to what we have here internally. So once we get a request, like to look into things, we start to assess that. We use different models, different scenarios, varying load, generation, interchange, different dispatch, and different topology for the transmission to evaluate that. We look at system normal and contingencies. Once we go through that process and identify a need to mitigate an issue, we look at the different options. And Pablo went through a few of them here, whether we want to redispatch, we want to change our outage schedule, which could be very effective if you plan ahead, but also scheduling outages aided by the information we get from the experience from our internal program and the feedback we get from our customers help us make that process more efficient. One tool we can use is there a place where you can do some low-cost, high-impact upgrades. We go about that. But topology optimization, the topic for today, has been a leading tool that we used especially recently here to help us operate the system reliably and save customers money in the process. Ambient adjusted ratings is another tool we have, and I'll talk about that. That's not the topic today, but it's another tool that we're using. So once we determine what's out there for us, we look at evaluating the different options, looking at things like the operational impact, the need for coordination, how long it will take to implement them, flexibility it provides, and the cost to implement. And that takes us to the next step where we go through implementation, where we have different options about the time frame we're going to implement them, whether it's going to be a standing action, something we're going to do in the forward-looking time horizon, or something that has to be addressed in real time. So first, very high-level overview next year about our program to monitor congestion. We're independent transmission company, so our window to that is public information provided, in this case, by MISO. So back in 2013, we started a program using the information provided by MISO to look at the congestion in our footprint, created different reports, raised awareness internally here, and analyzed the results looking for mitigation options to limit congestion. The way we do that in real time, we watch look at what MISO published, but we also run some after-the-fact reviews, kind of lessons learned, the things that we can improve on and help us with that. Again, calculation method is using the MISO binding constraint reports publicly published for us. A little bit of disclaimer here. Obviously, again, we are transmission, operators. We're independent, so the calculation we run is just a benchmark, try to aid us to areas where we need to focus on to reduce congestion. It's not a real actual cost because we don't have the information that we require and possibly not even the expertise. We're transmission people here, so but we've seen value for tracking that. It pointed us to places where we can implement technologies and solutions like what topology optimization we're talking about today. What we can do here is once we identify, that there is an issue somewhere, is to look at ways to mitigate that. So here, we get a few different ways where we can mitigate issues that are causing congestion, and trying to kind of score them and compare them with each other. Another disclaimer here, this is based on my experience over 15 years in dealing with this. Other experience could be different, and areas are different, but I think this is a good way for us to look at it. At the end of the day, our approach here is we're going with all of the above options, but some options are better for different applications. So outage scheduling, if you take that, I mean, it's something that, especially if you do that in real time or close to real time, they tend to be more costly to implement. But it does have minimal impact on the system as you implement it. Generation redispatch, it could work. Obviously, it by definition it costs money. Typically, it does not take a lot of time to implement, but we've seen cases where it might take time to implement. So, as you're comparing these options, that's kind of where that stands. One of the benefits of topology optimization that we have here, the cost to implement is minimal compared to others. And the time to implement, obviously, just like anything else, we have to go through that process of evaluation and comparing, options and making sure that all of these options are reliable when we implement them. But the action to implement it is relatively the time to take to implement is relatively low compared to others. Now, with topology optimization, obviously you're making changes to the system. You have to be careful and make sure that we're not introducing other issues, and that is the primary focus for all involved here. Low cost, high impact upgrades, when you can find them, they're great. It's a good way to make sure that the system is fully utilized, and it's always a priority. But as you keep doing this for years, you're going to run out of options there because it might be hard to find those there. Ambient adjusted ratings, that's a big topic here. It does require a lot of coordination, as a lot of the audience here are probably familiar with that, but we're making progress there, and we have programs that we're using now, and everybody obviously is aware of what's coming with order, FERC Order 881 there, with the implementation there. So this is kind of an overview for the different ways that we use to mitigate, but focusing more on topology optimization here and getting into a little bit of the details of that process next year, kind of building on what Pablo introduced earlier about the different type of reconfigurations that we have to use, and just a little bit of some of our experience with the different types. And we're going to go through an example here in a little bit. I promise you we're not going to do any power flows today, but just very high level example we're going to go through here. But starting with the station configuration, a change in contingency. It does, one of its benefits is it's low impact to network connectivity, changes within the station that changes the topology, changes how the contingencies behave. It could be used in a place of a complicated RADs, remedial action schemes. Instead of going through all that, you could use reconfiguration to accomplish the same goals. And one of the big benefits here for a system operator is the fact that it could be restored at any time. System is dynamic, things change. We can always back out of that if need to. One of the things you need to watch for, and we have processes in place to make sure that we are mitigating that, is impact and loading generation. So some coordination is required there with load owners and generators to make sure that whatever configuration we have minimum impact on them. Now, opening branches, the other one that could be affected sometimes, but the less connected the network is, the weaker it is in general. There are exceptions, obviously, to every rule. So that's that impact. That's why one of the things that we look at when we're looking at this, and make sure that we're using SCADA control devices to operate that, so we have the ability to adjust this needed. This is also could put on radio. Station splits. We've seen a successful application that's shown to be very effective here. It is a little more complex than the other types, and thus it requires more careful review, but and that includes relay coordination review and all that. But with proper planning, we've seen good results there. And just like the station configuration, it may impact load and generation. So it requires coordination along those lines as well. So now we can talk about our example in a little bit. You got just the simple grid here, my power system classes here, trying to simplify this as much as possible. Just for me, so we can go through it and get through it. But let's go through some of these examples. I think they're all clear here, but just to kind of reinforce that, if we have an issue, let's say a station between station 1 and station 2, and overloading the line between station 1 and station 2, you could use redispatch, reduce the generation at station 1, and try to mitigate it that way. Might work, might not work, but you have the option of reconfiguring at the station. If you open one of the breakers there, you change the contingency in this case. So if you lose the line between station 1 and station 3, and instead of that being a contingency that's causing an issue, you would drop the generator. So you'd have to coordinate with the generator, but that contingency is no longer a concern. You can take another option here and open that line between station 1 and station 2 instead, right? So the station is normal now. You have load at station 2 that's at radial feed. You address the issue with the concern. You coordinate with the load owner at station 2 and make sure that they're aware of the risk and actions are taken to make sure that load is served, or we have backup or connectivity at the distribution level. Now the other third option we talked about here, if you get more into the station split option here, if that's one option you could take. Let's say if you got issues where you need to isolate that the generator is connected there from the line that's going to my left here, for example, you could do this. You reroute the flow that way, put that load on possibly on radial. That's something you got to watch for here. A more complicated network might move the problem elsewhere, but it's like I said earlier, we've seen a lot of good applications there as long as we do the review ahead of time and do the coordination with impacted parties there. It's shown very, very good results there. So now we are at the implementation stage next. And I got to start with a note here. I mean, obviously, all these plans are recommendations for system operators, and all these actions are at their discretion. System is dynamic, things could change, but here's some of the guidelines that we could use. In cases where we have a problem that's going, continuous happening very often, we might go with the standing action option, where we write an operating guide with standing actions and recommendations for the operators. In this case, obviously, we need to make sure that any customer impacts identified is mitigated and communicated to the customers. This is documented. One of the issues with going that direction, if you have competing contingencies, constraints, basically you have two constraints that are going against each other. It's hard to document that in a simple document. You might need to make decisions in real time, so that might be a limitation of going that route. The other route, which has its benefit, when you're looking at forward-looking time horizon, you will gain more benefit with day ahead, and that's typically used for planned outages, limited time. Planned outages, we would make the configurations in the forward-looking time horizon, and it does work best when the conditions we're trying to mitigate could be forecast reliably. Real time, obviously another time horizon where we can make these decisions. Usually, if you have issues that are variable or not predicted easily, real time is the place where you can see all these actions are taken. Also, obviously, when you have unplanned events, real time is where you can take this. And also, as mentioned earlier, when you have competing constraints, you might have to make decisions in real time and when to implement these reconfigurations options here. So next, let's just talk about a real-world example here, working with Alliant Energy and NewGrid on an outage in southeast Iowa, the Ottumwa generation station there, where we've seen an increased congestion on 2 lines. If you're monitoring the MISO congestion reports, you'll be familiar with these lines, very commonly showing up in an area where we have a lot of renewable resources recently connected, and you see these 2, Beacon Irvine and Powashik Reasoner. We do have ambient adjusted ratings for both of them, but we still saw some increased congestion. Implemented multiple configuration options, different options that were presented, and in coordination with NewGrid and here studies we run internally. One thing to note, and it's very important to note, that when we implement these reconfigurations, we are actually dealing with or mitigating actual system operating limit exceedances. So we are working to protect the system, not only from the fact that we're increasing capacity, but we're also protecting our transmission system from overloads by making this reconfiguration. And obviously, savings are a plus here. We're very happy to see that. Our customers are seeing benefits from this, and in this example, was reported that there were over $4.4 million of savings. So talking about the customers, I'll turn it over to Mitch to go over Alliant's perspective here.
Thanks, Abu. I'm going to talk next about Alliant Energy's perspective and involvement in topology optimization. Before I jump into that, a little bit of brief background on Alliant Energy. We are a Midwest gas and electric utility. We serve about 1 million electric customers and 425,000 gas customers. Like a lot of utilities, we are in the midst of transforming our generation fleet. Currently, the generation resources we have, about 43% represent renewable resources. We are the 3rd largest regulated wind owner operator in the US, top 5 regulated solar owner operator. And then one other item I'd call out about Alliant is that we are a transmission dependent utility, meaning we don't have direct ownership and operation of the transmission system, which we think gives us a little bit of a unique perspective when we're talking about transmission issues. So first, covering Alliant Energy's perspective on topology optimization, and I would broaden that to grid enhancing technologies in general. We feel like these type of solutions need to be a priority, and that looking ahead to get to where we want to go in the future, we're going to need these solutions. Just seeing all of the increased demands on the system, as well as thinking about the affordability, reliability objectives we have, we need to utilize these type of solutions more going forward. As a company, we definitely support continuing to build out the transmission system where necessary, but we also know that has a time component to it, it has a cost component to it. So while we are continuing to work on building out the system, what we would like to see is greater adoption of solutions such as topology optimization to help us get to more of an all-of-the-above approach when we think about how are we going to address congestion going forward, how we're going to meet all of the increasing demands that we're seeing on the system. So with the mindset of and desire of wanting to see greater utilization of the system, we started looking harder at topology optimization. Provided on this slide here is a summary of the collaboration that we've been doing in this space. For us, that started with engagement with NewGrid. They were helping us analyze current congestion events impacting Alliant Energy generation assets and our customers. That could be things from transmission outages, generation outages, other events occurring on the system. Being proactive on what may be coming up ahead. Once we identify an upcoming event with a potentially high impact, we are working with NewGrid and see if we can develop a reconfiguration solution that would be robust to help mitigate the impact of that event. If we find a robust solution, then we are working with the transmission owner, with MISO, and potentially others to get that solution implemented. And I'll highlight and stress here really the benefits that we've seen, which I'll touch on in the coming slide, gets back to the collaboration coordination that we've had with NewGrid, ITC Midwest, MISO, and other transmission and generation owners. Without that collaboration, the benefits that we have achieved simply would not have been possible. And I have been asked a number of times, how have we been able to achieve benefits in this space? And I would also point back to really it's the mindset and having a shared mindset with partners on wanting to embrace and see more of these solutions implemented. So taking a look now at the impact and benefits we've seen as a company from topology optimization solutions, we've been able to work with others to implement. Shown on the slide here is the congestion savings we've seen dating back to October of 2021. If you look at the bar chart in the center of the slide here, the blue shaded region on the top, that represents estimated congestion cost savings of about $32 million for our customers. And the way we've approached calculating that is essentially looking at actual market results and then utilizing the state estimator cases that MISO produces every day to essentially revert the solution that was put in place to understand what was the impact on constraints, and then use shadow prices to understand the value of preventing that constraint and congestion from occurring. We've also been tracking what we refer to as foregone savings opportunities. That's shown in the orange shaded region of about another $32 million. And the way we've looked at those is if we come up with a solution that is shown to be robust, but ultimately it's not implemented for any sort of reliability issue, we put that into the foregone savings opportunity bucket. An example of that could be if we come up with a solution, but just the amount of time that it takes to get the solution analyzed by others and ultimately implemented, the time frame over which it would have been helpful has expired. That gives you a sense of some of the things that we've put in that foregone savings opportunity bucket. So if you look at the solutions that we've identified working with NewGrid, both those that have been implemented as well as those we consider foregone opportunities, we estimate almost a potential 50% reduction in congestion costs for our customers. Also want to highlight, in addition to congestion savings, other benefits we've seen shown on the right-hand side of the slide: increased production tax credit, PTC revenues, increased market revenues from reduced curtailments from our resources. The third item, ability to perform required testing. We've seen when we are looking to bring new resources online, it's becoming more challenging to get through commissioning and testing activities. Part of the reason for that in MISO, if you are a resource that is not officially designated as being commercial, you are last in the stack in terms of priority. So if MISO is looking ahead and seeing any sort of system issue, then you're going to get a hard curtailment to zero. And at times that's really challenged our ability to get resources through those testing procedures. And so we've utilized reconfigurations to help address system situations to get resources commercial, so we can fully leverage the ability of those resources for the benefit of our customers in the market. And then finally, increased reliability from reduced overloaded lines, with a thought there. If we are doing activities that's helping to reduce overloaded line, that in general is providing a reliability benefit. To help illustrate that reliability benefit, NewGrid has performed an analysis, again, looking at the solutions that were implemented as well as those considered foregone opportunities, and taking a look at what was the impact on overloads, the number of hours, and finding that overall, if you look at both those solutions that were implemented as well as those foregone opportunities, a potential for a 94% reduction in overload risk events. Again, speaking to both the reliability and prior slide economic benefits from these solutions. In addition to the direct benefits we've seen from topology optimization, want to highlight here the regional impacts as well. What you see on the slide here are two MISO LMP maps, 5-minute snapshots apart. What this represents is a solution that was implemented for a constraint you can see on the left-hand side of the screen occurring in Northeast Iowa. NewGrid was able to develop a reconfiguration solution. We were able to work with ITC Midwest and others to have that solution ultimately implemented. And then what you see on the right-hand side of the slide, there's essentially, after that solution was implemented, immediately after the MISO market picked up that solution, you can see a wide area within Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota immediately becoming uncongested. Speaking a little bit more to the regional benefit of topology optimization, shown on this slide here is another Iowa example. This is from a reconfiguration that was implemented in the fall of last year. There was a planned maintenance outage on the Hayward 161 kV substation. Again, we were able to work with NewGrid to find a solution which involved two actions: opening a line and splitting a bus. And then shown on the slide here is the impact estimated from that reconfiguration, which was put in place over a 6-week period in September and October, showing almost a $15 million reduction in regional congestion costs, which overall provided about a 71% reduction in congestion from the outage that occurred during that time frame. Next slide here, again, is showing the impact of that reconfiguration, which was implemented last fall. This slide shows the impact of avoided curtailments. And again, showing over that 6-week time frame, you can see the reconfiguration avoided 26 gigawatt hours of wind curtailments. That represented about a 5% increase in wind output. And what that means for our customers, that's additional generation revenues, that's additional production tax credits for us and for our customers. Next here, I want to touch on some final thoughts and recommendations as we move forward. Overall, from our experience with topology optimization, we've seen this as a proven technology. As Pablo noted with his opening comments, what we're doing here is not fundamentally new. Reconfigurations have been used for a long time, primarily for reliability reasons. Really, the difference here is taking these solutions and looking at them through more of an economic lens, which still can provide reliability benefits. We see these solutions as readily implementable, able to leverage existing processes in place that are able to analyze things like outages on the system and then use existing processes and protocols to get those solutions implemented. We also have found these solutions to be a win-win-win alternative for economic efficiency, reliability, resilience, again, providing that both economic benefit for our customers as well as a reliability benefit to the system. And then finally, we found these solutions to be complementary to transmission investment and all other grid enhancing technologies. An example there is within the MISO footprint, we are going through another large regional build out of transmission with MISO's long range transmission plan. And as part of that regional build out, there are significant outages that have and will be occurring throughout the time frame that construction occurs. And these are the type of solutions that can help us manage through as we're trying to get to that more robust system. Finally, on future needs and what we would like to see more of going forward. First, we would like to see more time and effort on finding, evaluating, and implementing reconfiguration solutions. We think our pilot has shown if we lean more into these type of solutions, there definitely is incremental value for customers and for the grid. And there really is no way to get around if we want to see more of these solutions. It simply takes more time and resources to find these solutions and then work on their implementation. We'd also think it would be beneficial to develop reconfiguration processes in other regions. SPP and ERCOT are working on similar processes as MISO. And even for those processes in place, such as in MISO, we do see a need to continue to refine those processes to make them better. Naturally, if any new process that gets put in place, there's going to be opportunities to improve. So we are continuing to work with MISO to find ways to make their current process even better. Third item, we think topology optimization, integration with ISO RTO systems to help support operation decisions would be a good benefit. ISO's RTOs today are already taking steps. They already have processes in place to try and help mitigate the impact of whatever system circumstances are occurring. However, we feel if there were a greater utilization of topology optimization software, that essentially could just make that tool on their tool belt even bigger, more robust to help them manage through whatever system circumstances are occurring. And then finally, going forward, additional state and federal policy support to help ensure that items above move forward. We have seen FERC take some steps with the encouragement of grid enhancing technologies, but as we go forward, we think it'll be important for both state and federal regulators to monitor the progress in the area and potentially come forward with additional policies, again, to help make sure that we're making progress and able to bring the benefits to bear to customers in the system from these solutions. So with that, I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Great, thanks so much, Mitch, and thanks to Pablo and Abu as well. So we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A. So I do see folks have been adding questions to the Slido, which is great. Keep putting them in, even if we don't have time. We'll be able to answer those after the fact as well. So I see a lot of thumbs up for the top question here, which is, I think, one that we hear a lot when talking about really any kind of grid enhancing technology or impact to the to system, but particularly for topology optimization. So obviously that doing topology optimization changes LMPs. That could create different winners and losers as those LMPs change. What has been the overall stakeholder response? Mitch, do you have a response on that maybe to start, and then maybe I'll pass it to Pablo if he wants to comment as well.
Sure. I think overall the stakeholder response to these solutions has been positive. And ultimately what we're trying to get at with these solutions is operate the market in the most efficient manner as possible. That's aligned with what MISO, ISOs, RTOs are trying to do with their market processes in place. So we would see leveraging these solutions more very much in line with what is really the North Star of operating markets today. I'll pause there, let Abu or Pablo jump in with other thoughts.
Fully agree with Mitch's comments. Just to add, keep in mind that pretty much every action that a transmission or sometimes even a generation operator takes could have implications in terms of pricing and economics. If you think about it, a reconfiguration is not very different from an outage, except that you can revert it very quickly, as typically, as Abu indicated. So the goal here is to be very careful and select those that are regionally beneficial for a number of reasons. Increase the utilization of the system, deliver more resources to load, increase reliability, reduce costs. So my experience has been similar to Mitch's. No resistance, since that is the North Star in general of RTO regions, utility operations.
Great. Next question, looking at it from the real-time perspective, how do you deal with the need to evaluate the reconfiguration options for dynamic security, not to jeopardize stability? Any thoughts there?
I can take that if that's or can get us started there. Obviously, this is a very good question. Thank you for that. It's reliability obviously is the primary goal for us here as we're doing this. So whether it's for the transmission operator or at the reliability coordinator level, or the RTO, MISO in this case, as part of our normal processes here in real time, we run our real time assessment. Part of that is to continue to evaluate the system for any identified issues, and this is part of it. So before any decisions are made, studies are run and to ensure that the system continues to operate reliably. And as we continue running our real-time assessments, like every 5 minutes, we continue to evaluate that, and the fact that in cases if things changed dynamically, we can always adjust and correct is needed to react to what's happening there. But the tools we have in real time proven to help us make sure that these actions are continue to provide reliable benefits to the system while saving customers money.
Thanks, Abu. Let me move on to the next question. Talking about protection, so opening breakers, introduces risks in protection coordination. How is that accounted for in real time, where operators may not have that protection knowledge? Any thoughts there from maybe Abu or others?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So in cases where in decision when we have a complicated or more complex type configuration, we tend to do that in the forward-looking or standing action type options we have, so we can allow enough time for these analysis to be run. We do our best if we are faced with a situation where we need to evaluate an option. We have a relay on call that we can work on them, and we try to avoid making these decisions in real time. We typically take these decisions in more in a planned fashion and make sure all studies are analyzed ahead of time, and keep to the more simple solutions that will not typically introduce issues with coordination, like just opening a breaker or opening a line, which is something that we do. It's part of our normal processes, but anything complicated or more, we'll make sure we take care of that in the planning time horizon.
Thanks, Abu. So I think there's maybe two questions, and I'm going to try to combine.
Eric, just a quick reaction, or not reaction, but follow on to Abu's response on breakers. Keep in mind that sometimes a reconfiguration includes a breaker that would open anyways with a contingency. So by let's say preemptively opening it, you're actually reducing the risk of malfunction. So sometimes the risk can go in either direction. So just something to keep in mind.
Great, thanks, Pablo. Okay, let me actually change. So I think this might be a good question. Talking about speed, I know Mitch talked a little bit about some of the reasonings for foregone benefits, maybe were not being implemented in time. Is there any info that you all can share on how fast these, all the different processes after the reconfiguration is shared, how long it takes for it to get implemented?
I can say from our experience, I mean, it's varied depending on the complexity of the reconfiguration. Generally speaking, as Abu noted, we are looking for more of the low-hanging fruit, less complex type of reconfigurations that can help reduce the amount of time for analysis. Generally speaking, we're looking to give 30 days type notice for anything that we're looking to do to ensure that necessary studies are completed. We've also found as more parties are more comfortable and understanding with the analysis and what's being proposed, that's also helped with some of the timelines. I'll stop there. Pablo, jump in if you've got additional thoughts.
So let me just try to do one very quickly if we can. There's some questions around different metrics. Are there things other than LMPs? Is there sort of tiebreakers when you have multiple reconfigurations that solve a congestion issue? Any other, like in a short response, any kind of other metrics that you might use? Maybe talking about reliability, for example.
I can start in real quickly. Yes, we talked about, and Pablo talked about this a little bit too, impact on load and generation. There's things that we look at as we're evaluating this as one of the things that we're looking at as we're measuring the effectiveness of the solutions. So I'll stop here and see if Pablo or Mitch want to add more.
So a couple more could be, clearly less is more in this case. Simpler is better. So that's one. The reconfigurations have been used previously or evaluated previously. That's certainly simpler to evaluate again. And a critical one, especially when the technology is not necessarily deployed in the control room, but it's as a request. It's how well it performs under a really wide range of scenarios. So consistent performance is another one.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And Mitch, did you have anything to add, or?
I think Abu and Pablo hit on the key items there.
Okay, great. Well, we're just about at the top of the hour, so I'd say we'll wrap it up. So I want to thank our speakers again for their presentation today. As I mentioned earlier, we will send an email out to everyone that attended and those that registered as well with the video file presentation materials. We also, after some time, I'll work with Pablo and Mitch and Abu to look to try to answer some of the other questions that we didn't get to and post those along with the slides and the video. So I want to thank our ESIG members again for their support. These free webinars are made possible by the support of ESIG members. So if you're not a member yet, please do reach out to us to participate and receive all the benefits of being a member. Appreciate your engagement. Look forward to seeing you again soon, either at our next webcast or hopefully we'll see many of you at our spring technical workshop in March in Austin, Texas. Further information on all the webinars and meetings can be found on the ESIG website, www.esig.energy, under events, and as well as in our newsletters and informational emails. Pablo, Abu, Mitch, thank you once again for the presentation and for the great information. It's really, I think, awesome to see these real numbers, large numbers, and showing that a lot of these technologies are there and they're implementable, and there's tens of $millions that we're already seeing in the ways that we're using them today. That isn't necessarily maybe as fully as we can use them in the future. So I think that's a really great message to hear. Looking forward to hearing more about some of these technologies in future webcasts. Thanks everyone for your interest. Look forward to seeing you all again in the near future. Thanks.